Derek's hand cracked across the old woman's face. Mama Joe crashed against the kitchen counter, her frail body crumpling like paper. "Sign the papers!" Derek screamed, grabbing her wrist and twisting until she cried out. "Sign them, or I'll break every bone in your body, you worthless old woman!" Mama Joe's trembling voice shattered the air. "Please, son, don't hurt me anymore. Please." Her tears mixed with blood from her split lip. Derek raised his fist again. The front door exploded open. Marcus stood there, his eyes locked on the nightmare before him. His mother, his brother, his whole world collapsing in a single heartbeat. Before we continue this incredible story, I want to invite you to subscribe to our channel and follow Mama Joe's journey until the very end. Please comment below and tell us which city you are watching from. I am always amazed to see how far these stories travel, and your support means everything. Now let us return to this moment that will change everything. Marcus Johnson stepped out of his Mercedes. Something was wrong. He felt it in his bones, the same instinct that had saved him in 100 business deals gone sideways. He had come home a day early from New York. No warning, no phone call, just a feeling that pulled him back to Atlanta like a rope around his chest. He walked toward the front door. The house was too quiet. Then he heard it. His mother's voice, small, broken, begging, "Please, son, don't hurt me anymore." Marcus's blood turned to ice. He threw open the door and ran. The sound led him to the kitchen. What he saw there stopped his heart cold. Mama Joe was pressed against the counter. Her hand covered her cheek. Her eyes were wide with fear. And standing over her, his fist still raised, was Derek. Derek, his half-brother. The man Marcus had welcomed into this home 5 years ago. The man he had trusted with everything. What the hell is going on here? Derek spun around. Something dark flashed across his face. Then it vanished. His expression shifted into concern. "Marcus, brother, you're home early." Marcus did not move. "Mama, what happened to your face?" Mama Joe opened her mouth. Derek spoke first. "She had another episode. You know how she gets confused. She was trying to use the stove and I had to stop her. She fell against the counter. I was just helping her up." Marcus looked at his mother. "Mama, is that true?" Mama Joe's lips trembled. Her eyes darted to Derek for just a fraction of a second. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes, baby. I just got confused. Derek was helping me." Her voice was wrong. Everything was wrong. Marcus had spent 20 years negotiating with the most ruthless businessmen in America. He knew when someone was lying. He knew when someone was afraid. His mother was both. "Where's Miss Ruthie?" "She went home early. Veronica gave her the evening off." Veronica gave her the evening off. That's right. Marcus walked to his mother. He took her hand gently and led her to the kitchen table. He pulled out a chair, helped her sit, then turned back to Derek. "We'll talk later. Right now, I want to spend time with Mama." Derek's jaw tightened. Of course. Family first. He walked out. Marcus waited until the door closed. Then he knelt beside his mother's chair. "Mama, look at me." Mama Joe raised her eyes. They were wet with tears. "Mama, I need you to tell me the truth. Did Derek hit you?" "Marcus, please." "Did he hit you?" A tear slipped down her cheek. "He's your brother, baby. He's blood. I don't want to cause trouble." Marcus felt something crack inside his chest. "Mama, you are my blood. You are the woman who raised me. You worked 3 jobs so I could eat. You walked 5 miles in the snow because we couldn't afford the bus. You sacrificed everything for me. Do you think I care more about Derek than I care about you?" Mama Joe's shoulders began to shake. "I'm just an old woman, Marcus. I don't want to be a burden." "A burden?" Marcus's voice broke. "Mama, you are the reason I am alive. You are the reason I am anything at all. Without you, I would be nothing." He took her face gently in his hands. He saw the bruise forming on her cheek. He saw the marks on her wrist that her sleeves had been hiding. He saw how she flinched when he touched her. "How long, Mama? How long has this been going on?" Mama Joe shook her head. It's not just him. It's her too. Veronica. She says terrible things to me. She says I'm taking up space in my own home. She says when I'm gone, they'll finally get what they deserve. Marcus's hands trembled. She takes my medication and gives me different pills. She took Grandma's ring, Marcus, the one from 1942. She said I lost it, but I know she took it. Why didn't you call me? Why didn't you tell me? I tried, baby. I tried so many times. But Veronica monitors the phone. She tells me you're too busy. She tells me you don't want to be bothered with an old woman's complaints. Mama Joe's voice dropped to a whisper. And Derek, he said, if I ever told you, he would make sure I regretted it. He said he would tell the court I was losing my mind. He said they would put me in a home where nobody would ever visit me. Marcus stood up fast, his fists clenched. Every instinct screamed at him to find Derek right now and make him pay. But Mama Joe grabbed his arm. No, baby, not like that, not with anger. That's not how I raised you. We do this the right way, with truth and justice. You hear me? Marcus forced himself to breathe. You're right, Mama. You're right. He pulled out his phone and dialed. Raymond, it's Marcus. I need you at my house first thing tomorrow morning. Bring everything you need for an elder abuse case. What happened? I'll explain when you get here. Just be ready. This is going to get ugly. Marcus hung up. He looked at his mother. No one will ever hurt you again. Not while I'm breathing. That night, Marcus helped Mama Joe to her room. He tucked her in the way she used to tuck him in when he was small. I'm scared, baby, she whispered. I know, Mama. But I'm here now. I'm not going anywhere. Derek is going to be angry when he finds out. Let him be angry. I'm not afraid of him. But he's your brother, your daddy's son. I know how much you wanted a family after your daddy passed. That's why you brought him here. Marcus's throat tightened. She was right. When he discovered Derek's existence 5 years ago, he had felt hope. The hope of finally having a brother who shared his blood. Their father, James Johnson, had been a complicated man. He had loved Mama Joe, but he had also betrayed her. Derek was the proof of that betrayal. When Marcus found out, he could have ignored it. He could have pretended Derek did not exist. But Mama Joe had taught him better. Bring him home, she had said. He didn't choose how he came into this world. We don't turn away family. So Marcus found Derek, welcomed him, gave him a job, bought him a car, let him and Veronica move into the estate. And this was how Derek repaid that kindness. I wanted a brother, Marcus said quietly. But not like this. Mama Joe touched his face. You have a good heart, Marcus. That's why this hurts. But a good heart doesn't mean you have to accept cruelty. Sometimes love means saying enough. Marcus kissed her forehead. Get some rest, Mama. Tomorrow we start fixing this. He closed the door and walked toward the guest wing. He needed to hear something for himself. The guest wing was quiet. Light spilled from under Derek and Veronica's door. Marcus pressed himself against the wall. He knows something. Derek's voice. You should have seen how he looked at me. He doesn't know anything. Veronica's voice was cold. He just got home. He's tired and paranoid. The old woman's face. I hit her harder than I meant to. What if he saw... So what? She's old. Old people bruise easily. You'll tell him she fell. She'll back up your story because she's too scared. And if she doesn't? Veronica's voice dropped. Then we accelerate the plan. We've been patient long enough. The trust documents are almost ready. Once she signs the power of attorney, we control everything. Marcus is too busy playing CEO to notice. By the time he figures it out, it'll be too late. Marcus felt his stomach turn. They were not just abusing his mother. They were planning to steal everything. What about Marcus? Derek asked. He's not stupid. Veronica laughed. Cold, ugly. Marcus feels guilty about you. He feels guilty about your father choosing him. That guilt makes him blind. As long as you play the grateful brother, he'll never suspect. She paused. And if he does? Accidents happen to old people. a fall down the stairs, a medication mix-up. These things are tragic, but they happen. Marcus's blood went cold. They were talking about killing his mother. He wanted to burst through that door. He wanted to grab Derek by the throat. But Mama Joe's words echoed in his mind. We do this the right way. He needed proof. Marcus pulled out his phone and opened the security app. The house had cameras everywhere. He scrolled through the settings. Someone had disabled the cameras in the kitchen and near Mama Joe's room. Veronica. She had offered to manage the household systems when she moved in. Marcus had thought it was generous. Now he understood it was strategic. They had been planning this for years. Marcus walked back to his study. The picture of Mama Joe smiled at him from the bookshelf. I won't let them hurt you, Mama, he whispered. He pulled up his laptop. He began searching. Elder abuse attorneys in Atlanta, financial fraud investigators, private detectives. Around midnight his phone buzzed, a text from Raymond. Cleared my morning. I'll be there at 8 a.m. Marcus typed back, thank you. He leaned back and closed his eyes. His brother was a monster. His sister-in-law was a predator, and his mother had been suffering while he was too busy to notice. He thought about the past 5 years. The business trips, the late nights, the phone calls where Mama Joe said everything was fine. He had believed her because he wanted to believe her. What good was success if the person who mattered most was suffering? Marcus made a promise to the empty room. I'm going to fix it. I'm going to protect you, even if it costs me everything. The next morning, Raymond Blake arrived at 7:45. With him was Diana Wells, an elder law attorney. Marcus led them to his study and closed the door. Tell us everything, Raymond said. Marcus told them. The scene in the kitchen, the bruises, the conversation he overheard, the disabled cameras, the missing money, the power of attorney documents. Diana's expression was grim. This is textbook elder abuse. Physical, emotional, and financial. Your mother is being exploited by people she trusted. What can we do? We need documentation, evidence. You mentioned the cameras were disabled. Can you replace them? I have a security team coming this afternoon. Good. We also need medical records. If she's been given improper medication, that's another charge. And we need financial records. I have some already. Raymond leaned forward. Marcus, are you prepared for what this means? If we file charges, Derek will be arrested. There will be a trial. The press will get involved. Marcus did not hesitate. I don't care about the press. I don't care about my reputation. I care about my mother. Diana nodded. That's what we needed to hear. They spent 2 hours going over strategy. Diana would file for an emergency protective order. Raymond would handle the financial investigation. Marcus would gather evidence. As they were leaving, the door to the guest wing opened. Veronica stepped out, dressed perfectly, smiling warmly. Good morning. I didn't realize we had guests. Marcus, you should have told me. Marcus's jaw tightened. They were just leaving. Oh, that's too bad. She turned to Raymond and Diana. Any friends of Marcus are friends of ours. After they left, Veronica turned to Marcus. Her smile did not waver, but something changed in her eyes. Business meeting this early? You must be stressed. Derek and I were just saying you work too hard. You should spend time with Mama Joe. She misses you. Marcus looked at her, really looked. How had he never seen it, the calculation behind every word? I'm not going anywhere, he said. Veronica's smile flickered. Then it returned. That's wonderful. Family should stick together. She walked past him toward the kitchen. Marcus watched her go. His hands shook with fury. He climbed the stairs to Mama Joe's room and knocked. Mama, it's me. Come in, baby. Mama Joe was sitting by the window. She looked smaller somehow. How are you feeling? She tried to smile. I've been better. I've been worse. Marcus sat beside her. Mama, I met with lawyers this morning. Raymond Blake and Diana Wells. They specialize in situations like this. Mama Joe's face went pale. Lawyers, Marcus, I don't want to cause trouble. This isn't about trouble, Mama. This is about protecting you. What they're doing is illegal. It's abuse. I'm not going to let them get away with it." Tears slipped down Mama Joe's cheeks. "But he's your brother. I know how much it meant to you to have family." Marcus felt his eyes burning. "Mama, you are my family. You are the only family I need. I would give up 1,000 brothers before I let anyone hurt you." Mama Joe reached out and took his hand. "I'm scared, Marcus. They told me if I said anything they would take everything away. They said you wouldn't believe me." "I will always believe you, Mama. Always." They sat together in silence. Finally, Mama Joe spoke. "Your grandmother used to say, 'A snake don't change its nature just because you bring it inside.' I should have remembered." "You were trying to love him, Mama. That's not a mistake. And look where it got us." Marcus shook his head. "This is not your fault. The only people to blame are Derek and Veronica, and they are going to pay." Mama Joe looked at him. For the first time, he saw hope in her eyes. "You really mean that? With everything I am?" She reached into her robe and pulled out a folded paper. "I wrote this months ago. I was going to send it, but I got scared. Now I think you should read it." Marcus took the paper. His hands trembled as he unfolded it. The handwriting was shaky but familiar. "My dear Marcus, if something happens to me, know that I love you. Know that I tried to love Derek too because he is part of your father's story. But the devil sometimes wears a familiar face. Protect yourself. Don't let guilt blind you like it blinded me. Your grandmother always said, 'A snake don't change its nature just because you bring it inside.' I should have listened. Forgive me for not being strong enough to tell you. All my love, Mama." Marcus stared at the words. His vision blurred. "Mama." "I'm sorry, baby. I'm sorry I wasn't brave enough." Marcus set the letter down and took his mother in his arms. He held her the way she used to hold him when the world seemed too big and too hard. "You don't have to be sorry. You survived. You held on. Now I'm here. We're going to get through this together." Mama Joe clung to him, her shoulders shaking. Marcus made one more promise. He would not fail her, no matter what it took. Miss Ruthie arrived at noon. She was 60 years old, had worked for the family since Mama Joe first moved into the estate. She walked in through the back door carrying groceries, humming an old hymn. Marcus met her in the kitchen. "Miss Ruthie, I need to talk to you." She set the bags down. Her eyes searched his face. She already knew something was wrong. "Close the door," Marcus said. She closed it. "How long have you known?" Miss Ruthie's hands began to tremble. She gripped the edge of the counter. "Mr. Marcus, I wanted to tell you. I swear I did." "How long?" "Almost 2 years. It started small, sharp words, little cruelties. Then it got worse. I saw the bruises. I heard the threats. I tried to help your mama, but every time I said something, Mrs. Veronica would..." "Would what?" Miss Ruthie's voice dropped to a whisper. "She told me if I ever said a word to you, she would have me deported. My grandson, he's in college now, first one in our family. She said she would make sure he lost his scholarship. She said she had connections." Marcus felt sick. "Miss Ruthie Veronica can't deport anyone, and she can't touch your grandson's scholarship. She was lying to control you, the same way she's been controlling my mother." Miss Ruthie's eyes filled with tears. "I know that now, Mr. Marcus, but I was scared. I'm just an old woman. I didn't know what to do." Marcus placed his hand on her shoulder. "You're not just anything, Miss Ruthie. You stayed. You protected my mother when I wasn't here. That means everything." Miss Ruthie wiped her eyes. "What are you going to do?" "I'm going to stop them, but I need your help. I need you to tell me everything you've seen, everything you've heard. Can you do that?" She nodded slowly. "For your mama, I'll do anything. There's a lawyer coming back tomorrow. Her name is Diana Wells. She's going to take your statement. Just tell her the truth." "I will, Mr. Marcus. I promise." Marcus squeezed her shoulder. "Thank you, Miss Ruthie. My mother is lucky to have you." Miss Ruthie shook her head. "No, sir. I'm lucky to have her. She's the kindest woman I've ever known. She didn't deserve any of this. Marcus walked out of the kitchen. His mind was racing. 2 years. His mother had suffered for 2 years while he built his empire. While he closed deals and counted money and traveled the world. He had failed her, but he would not fail her again. That afternoon, the security team arrived. Marcus met them at the gate and gave specific instructions. New cameras. Hidden. Locations that Derek and Veronica would never think to check. The team worked quickly and quietly. By evening, every corner of the house was covered. Marcus sat in his study watching the feeds on his laptop. He saw Derek and Veronica in the guest wing talking in low voices. He saw Miss Ruthie bringing Mama Jo her dinner. He saw his mother sitting alone by the window, her Bible in her lap. Around 8 o'clock, his phone rang. Diana Wells. Marcus, I filed the emergency protective order this afternoon. The judge will review it tomorrow morning. If everything goes well, we'll have a hearing within 48 hours. What are our chances? Based on what you've told me, strong. But we need more. Physical evidence, witness testimony, medical records showing the medication discrepancies. I'm working on all of it. Good. I'll call you tomorrow after the judge rules. Marcus hung up. He walked to the window and looked out at the estate, the house he had bought for his mother, the dream he had built for her. It had become her prison, but not for much longer. Around 10 o'clock, Marcus heard footsteps in the hallway. He opened his study door. Derek was standing there. Brother, we need to talk. Marcus stepped out. About what? Derek smiled. It did not reach his eyes. About today. The lawyers. The whispered conversations. I'm not stupid, Marcus. I know something is going on. You're right. Something is going on. I'm taking care of my mother. The way I should have been doing all along. Derek's smile faded. What's that supposed to mean? It means I'm home now. I'm not going anywhere, and things are going to change. Derek stepped closer. His voice dropped. Be careful, brother. You don't know everything you think you know. Mama Jo is old, confused. She says things that aren't true. You shouldn't believe everything you hear. Marcus felt his fists clench. I know exactly what I heard, and I know exactly what I saw. The question is, do you know what's coming? Derek's eyes narrowed. Is that a threat? It's a promise. They stood there face to face, the tension crackling between them. Then Derek laughed. A cold, hollow sound. You always thought you were better than me, didn't you? The golden son. The one Daddy chose. The one who got everything while I got nothing. This isn't about Daddy. This is about Mama. It's always about Daddy. Derek's voice rose. He worked himself to death for you and your precious Mama while my mother struggled alone. He never even acknowledged me. Never sent $1. Never made a phone call. And then you show up playing the generous brother throwing scraps like I'm some dog. Marcus shook his head. I welcomed you into my home. I gave you a job. I gave you everything I could. Everything? Derek laughed again. You gave me crumbs from your table. You gave me a guest room in your mansion while you sat in the big chair. You think that's generosity, that's charity, and I'm done being your charity case. Millionaire. So this is what it's about, money jealousy. Derek's face twisted. This is about what I deserve, what my mother deserved, what Daddy owed us. Daddy is dead, Derek, and Mama Jo never did anything to you. She welcomed you. She loved you. She tolerated me. There's a difference. Every time she looked at me, I saw it in her eyes. The reminder of her husband's betrayal. The son that shouldn't exist. Marcus felt the anger rising in his chest. So you decided to punish her, to hurt her, to steal from her. Derek went still. I don't know what you're talking about. I think you do, and I think you know that I know. For a long moment, neither of them moved. Then Derek smiled again. Thin, dangerous. Be careful, Marcus. You might have money. You might have lawyers. But you don't know who you're dealing with. Neither do you. Derek turned and walked away. His footsteps echoed down the hallway. Marcus watched him go. His heart was pounding. His hands were shaking. But he was not afraid. He walked back to his study and sat down at his desk. He pulled out his phone and sent a text to Raymond. "Derek just showed his hand. We need to move faster." Raymond replied within seconds. "I'll have the financial investigators expedite their report. Stay alert." Marcus set the phone down. He looked at the picture of Mama Joe on his desk. Her smile, her strength, the woman who had given him everything. "I'm coming for you, Derek," Marcus whispered. "And when I'm done, you'll wish you had never set foot in this house." The night stretched on. Marcus did not sleep. Around 2 in the morning, he heard a sound from the hallway. Soft footsteps, moving toward Mama Joe's room. He stood up and moved silently to the door. Through the crack, he saw Veronica. She was carrying something, a glass of water, a small bottle of pills. Marcus watched as she stopped outside Mama Joe's door. She looked left. She looked right. Then she opened the door and slipped inside. Marcus followed. He pressed himself against the wall outside the room. Through the gap he could hear Veronica's voice. "Wake up, Mama Joe. Time for your medicine." Mama Joe's voice was groggy, confused. "What? It's the middle of the night." "The doctor said you need to take these every 8 hours. Don't argue with me." "I don't remember the doctor saying, 'Are you calling me a liar?'" Veronica's voice sharpened. "Just take the pills, old woman. Don't make this harder than it needs to be." Marcus pushed open the door. Veronica spun around. The glass of water sloshed in her hand. "Marcus, what are you doing?" He walked past her to his mother's bedside. He took the glass from Veronica's hand. "I'll take care of my mother's medication from now on." Veronica's eyes flashed. "I was just trying to help." "I'm sure you were, but I've got it from here. You can go back to bed." Veronica stood there for a moment. Her face was a mask, but Marcus could see the rage beneath it. "Fine," she said. "Have it your way." She walked out. Her footsteps disappeared down the hallway. Marcus sat on the edge of his mother's bed. He took her hand. "Mama, what pills has she been giving you?" Mama Joe shook her head. "I don't know, baby. Different ones. She said the doctor changed my prescription. But I've been feeling so tired lately, so confused, not like myself." Marcus looked at the bottle Veronica had left on the nightstand. He picked it up. The label was wrong. These were not his mother's prescribed medications. "Mama, I'm going to have these tested. And from now on, I'm the only one who gives you your medicine." "Okay." Mama Joe nodded. Tears slipped down her cheeks. "I'm sorry, baby. I should have been stronger." Marcus kissed her forehead. "You are the strongest person I know. Now get some rest. I'll be right outside." He walked out of the room and closed the door. Then he pulled out his phone and took a picture of the pill bottle. Evidence. He sent it to Diana Wells with a message. "They've been drugging her. We need to move now." Diana replied within minutes. "I'll file an emergency motion first thing in the morning. This changes everything." Marcus put his phone away. He walked to the window and looked out at the dark sky. They had been poisoning his mother. Slowly, deliberately, making her seem confused and helpless so they could control her. The fury inside him was beyond anything he had ever felt. But he kept it contained, focused, sharp. Tomorrow the walls would start closing in on Derek and Veronica. And they had no idea what was coming. Marcus stayed awake the rest of the night. He sat in a chair outside his mother's room, watching the hallway, listening for any sound. Around 6 in the morning, Miss Ruthie arrived. She looked at Marcus with surprise. "Mr. Marcus, have you been here all night?" He nodded. "Veronica tried to give Mama the wrong medication at 2 in the morning. I stopped her." Miss Ruthie's face went pale. "Lord have mercy. I knew something was wrong. Your mama hasn't been herself for months. I thought it was just old age, but..." "It wasn't old age. They were drugging her." Miss Ruthie's hands flew to her mouth. "What are we going to do?" We're going to stop them, today. At 8 o'clock, Diana Wells called. Marcus, the judge, reviewed our motion. He's granting an emergency hearing for this afternoon. 2 o'clock. Be there with your mother, Miss Ruthie, and all the evidence you have. We'll be there. One more thing. Based on the medication issue, I've also contacted Adult Protective Services. They're sending an investigator to your house this morning. Good. Let them come. I want everything on record. Marcus hung up. He walked to his mother's room and helped her get dressed. He explained what was happening in simple, calm terms. Mama, we're going to court today. You're going to tell the judge what Derek and Veronica did to you, and then it's going to be over. Mama Jo's hands trembled as she buttoned her blouse. I'm scared, baby. What if they don't believe me? They'll believe you. I'll make sure of it. At 9 o'clock, the Adult Protective Services investigator arrived. Her name was Carol Patterson, a woman in her 50s with kind eyes and a no-nonsense manner. Marcus led her to Mama Jo's room. Mrs. Johnson, I'm here to ask you some questions about your living situation. You can tell me anything. You're safe. Mama Jo looked at Marcus. He nodded. Go ahead, Mama. Tell her everything. And she did. She told Carol about the slaps and the shoves, the threats and the isolation, the pills that made her feel foggy and lost, the stolen jewelry, the documents they tried to force her to sign. Carol wrote everything down. Her expression grew grimmer with each revelation. When Mama Jo finished, Carol turned to Marcus. Mr. Johnson, this is one of the most serious cases of elder abuse I've seen in my 20 years on this job. I'm going to recommend immediate intervention. What does that mean? It means Derek Hayes and Veronica Hayes will be removed from this residence today. If they resist, I'll have the police escort them out. Marcus felt something loosen in his chest. Thank you. Carol stood up. I'm going to make some calls. The removal will happen before your court hearing this afternoon. Your mother will be safe. She walked out. Marcus turned to Mama Jo. She was crying, but for the first time in months, they were tears of relief. It's almost over, Mama. I can't believe it, after all this time. Believe it, you're going to be okay. At 11 o'clock, Carol Patterson returned with 2 police officers. They walked to the guest wing. Marcus watched from the hallway as Carol knocked on the door. Derek opened it. His face was confused at first, then angry. What is this? What's going on? Mr. Hayes, I'm Carol Patterson from Adult Protective Services. You and your wife are being removed from this residence effective immediately. What, you can't do that. This is my brother's house. I live here. Not anymore. We have documented evidence of elder abuse against Mrs. Josephine Johnson. You can either leave voluntarily or these officers will escort you out. Derek's face twisted with rage. This is insane. Marcus, tell them this is a mistake. Marcus stepped forward. It's no mistake, Derek. You had your chance. You could have been my brother. Instead, you chose to hurt my mother. Now you're going to face the consequences. Derek's eyes bulged. You're going to regret this. I swear to God you're going to regret this. The police officers moved closer. Sir, we need you to step out of the room and gather your belongings. You have 30 minutes. Veronica appeared behind Derek. Her face was pale with fury. You can't do this. We have rights. This is wrongful eviction. Carol handed her a document. This is a legal removal order signed by a judge. You can contest it in court, but right now you're leaving this property. Veronica snatched the paper. Her hands were shaking. Marcus, you're making a huge mistake. We were trying to help your mother. She's confused. She doesn't know what she's saying. Marcus looked at her with cold eyes. She knows exactly what she's saying, and so do I. 30 minutes. Then you're gone. He turned and walked back to Mama Jo's room. She was sitting by the window watching. They're leaving, Mama. It's over. Mama Jo's eyes filled with tears. I never thought this day would come. Marcus knelt beside her chair. It came, Mama, because you were brave enough to tell the truth. 30 minutes later, Derek and Veronica were escorted out of the house. They carried suitcases and boxes. their faces twisted with rage and humiliation. As they passed Marcus, Derek stopped. "This isn't over, brother. You think you've won. You haven't won anything. I'll see you in court." Marcus did not flinch. "I'm counting on it." The front door closed behind them. Marcus stood in the foyer, listening to the silence. For the first time in days, the house felt peaceful. He walked back to Mama Joe's room. She was standing now looking out the window, watching Derek and Veronica's car drive away. "They're gone, baby. They're really gone." "Yes, Mama, and they're never coming back." She turned to him. Her eyes were bright with tears, but there was something else in them now. Strength. "Thank you, Marcus. Thank you for believing me." He took her in his arms and held her tight. "Always, Mama, always." At 1:30, Marcus helped Mama Joe into the car. Miss Ruthie sat beside her in the back seat holding her hand. Raymond Blake drove. Diana Wells followed in her own car. The courthouse was 30 minutes away. As they drove, Marcus looked at his mother in the rearview mirror. She was nervous, but she was ready. "You're going to be great, Mama. Just tell the truth." "What if I forget something?" "Then I'll be right there to remind you. We're in this together." Mama Joe squeezed Miss Ruthie's hand. "I've never been to court before. Not once in 78 years. Miss Ruthie smiled. "Then it's about time, Mrs. Joe. About time your voice got heard." They arrived at the courthouse at 1:50. Diana met them at the entrance. "The judge is ready. Derek and Veronica are already inside with their lawyer. This is going to be intense, but I want you to stay calm. Let me do the talking unless the judge asks you direct questions." They walked into the courtroom. Derek and Veronica sat at the defendant's table. Their lawyer, a slick man in an expensive suit, was whispering to them. When Derek saw Marcus, his eyes filled with hatred. Marcus did not look away. He guided Mama Joe to her seat, helped her settle in, and sat down beside her. The bailiff stood. "All rise." The Honorable Judge Patricia Coleman presiding. The judge walked in. She was a black woman in her 60s with sharp eyes and an air of authority that commanded respect. She took her seat and looked over the courtroom. "This is an emergency hearing in the matter of the state of Georgia versus Derek Hayes and Veronica Hayes on charges of elder abuse and financial exploitation. Let's begin." Diana stood. "Your Honor, we are here today to protect Mrs. Josephine Johnson, a 78-year-old woman who has been systematically abused by the defendants over the past 2 years. We have physical evidence, witness testimony, and documentation of financial theft. We request an immediate protective order and criminal referral." The defense lawyer stood. "Your Honor, these accusations are baseless. My clients are loving family members who have been caring for Mrs. Johnson in good faith. The plaintiff is clearly confused and has been manipulated by her son into making false claims." Judge Coleman raised her hand. "I'll hear the evidence before I make any determinations. Ms. Wells, call your first witness." Diana nodded. "The people call Miss Ruth Williams to the stand." Miss Ruthie stood. Her legs were shaking, but her face was determined. She walked to the witness stand and raised her right hand. "Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?" "I do." She sat down. Diana approached. "Miss Williams, how long have you worked for the Johnson family?" 8 years, ma'am, since Mrs. Joe first moved into the estate." "And in that time, what have you observed about the defendant's treatment of Mrs. Johnson?" Miss Ruthie took a deep breath. "I've seen things that broke my heart. Mr. Derek would yell at her for the smallest things. If she dropped a spoon, he'd call her useless. If she forgot something, he'd say she was losing her mind. And Mrs. Veronica, she was worse. She'd pinch Mrs. Joe when nobody was looking. She'd take her medication and give her different pills. She'd tell her that her son didn't love her, that nobody would believe her if she said anything." "Did you witness any physical abuse?" "Yes, ma'am. I saw Mr. Derek push Mrs. Joe once. She fell against the counter and bruised her hip. He told her if she said anything, he'd make sure she ended up in a home where nobody would visit." The courtroom was silent. Derek's lawyer stood. "Objection. This is hearsay." Judge Coleman shook her head. Overruled. The witness is describing events she personally witnessed. Continue, Ms. Wells. Diana turned back to Miss Ruthie. Why didn't you report this sooner? Miss Ruthie's eyes filled with tears. I was scared, ma'am. Mrs. Veronica told me she would have me deported. She said she would ruin my grandson's education. I know now that she was lying, but at the time I believed her. I'm so sorry. I should have been braver. Diana placed a gentle hand on the witness stand. You're being brave now, Miss Williams. That's what matters. She turned to the judge. No further questions. The defense lawyer stood for cross-examination. Miss Williams, isn't it true that you have a personal grudge against my clients? No, sir. Isn't it true that Mrs. Hayes disciplined you for poor work performance? That's not true, sir. I've always done my job. And isn't it possible that you're exaggerating these claims to protect your position in the Johnson household? Miss Ruthie's voice hardened. Sir, I've been cleaning houses since I was 16 years old. I've worked for rich families and poor families. I know the difference between discipline and cruelty. What I saw in that house was cruelty, pure and simple. The courtroom stirred. Judge Coleman nodded. You may step down, Miss Williams. Diana stood again. The people call Mrs. Josephine Johnson to the stand. Marcus helped his mother stand. He walked her to the witness chair. She raised her right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Her voice trembled, but it was clear. I do. She sat down. Diana approached gently. Mrs. Johnson, can you describe your relationship with the defendants? Mama Jo looked at Derek and Veronica. Her eyes were steady. I tried to love them. When Marcus brought Derek home, I thought I could make him part of our family. I thought if I loved him enough, it would heal the wounds his father left. But I was wrong. What happened? At first, it was small things, sharp words, criticism. Then it got worse. Derek would grab my arm so hard it left bruises. Veronica would give me pills that made me feel like I was losing my mind. They told me I was worthless. They told me my son didn't care about me. They told me if I ever said anything, they would put me in a home and I would die alone. Her voice broke. I believed them. For 2 years I believed them. Because I was scared, and because I didn't want to cause trouble for my son. Diana handed her a tissue. Take your time, Mrs. Johnson. Mama Jo wiped her eyes. But then Marcus came home. He saw the bruises. He heard the threats. And for the first time in 2 years, I felt like someone was on my side. Someone believed me. She looked at Marcus. Her eyes shone with love. My son saved my life, and I'm not going to be silent anymore. The courtroom was absolutely still. Judge Coleman leaned forward. Mrs. Johnson, do you understand the seriousness of the accusations you're making? Yes, Your Honor, I do. And you stand by your testimony? Mama Jo lifted her chin. Every word, Your Honor. I survived Jim Crow. I survived poverty. I survived losing my husband. I will not let these two take away the peace I've earned in my final years. Judge Coleman nodded slowly. Thank you, Mrs. Johnson. You may step down. Marcus helped his mother back to her seat. His eyes were wet, but his heart was full. She had done it. She had told her truth. Now it was time for justice. Diana stood for her closing statement. Your Honor, the evidence is clear. Mrs. Josephine Johnson has been physically abused, emotionally tormented, and financially exploited by the defendants. They isolated her from her family. They drugged her to keep her compliant. They stole from her accounts and threatened her into silence. This is not a family dispute. This is a crime. We request an immediate protective order, criminal charges, and full restitution. The defense lawyer gave his closing statement. He talked about misunderstandings, about family tensions, about an elderly woman's confusion, but his words fell flat. Judge Coleman looked at the defendants. Her expression was ice. I've heard enough. Based on the testimony and evidence presented, I am granting an emergency protective order against Derek Hayes and Veronica Hayes. They are prohibited from contacting Mrs. Josephine Johnson in any form. I am also referring this case to the District Attorney for criminal prosecution. Additionally, I am freezing all accounts connected to the defendants pending a full financial investigation." Derek shot to his feet. "This is wrong. She's lying. They're all lying." Judge Coleman's voice cut through the room. "Mr. Hayes, you will sit down immediately, or I will hold you in contempt." Derek's lawyer pulled him back into his seat. Judge Coleman continued, "I have seen many cases of elder abuse in my career, but I have rarely seen one so calculated, so cruel, and so cowardly. You preyed on a woman who opened her home to you. You betrayed the trust of a family that wanted nothing more than to love you. You should be ashamed." She struck her gavel. "Court is adjourned." Marcus stood. He helped Mama Joe to her feet. Around them, the courtroom buzzed with voices. Reporters were scribbling notes. The defense lawyer was arguing with Derek and Veronica. But Marcus heard none of it. He looked at his mother. She was trembling, but she was smiling. "We did it, baby," she whispered. "We really did it." Marcus pulled her into his arms. "No, Mama, you did it. You were the brave one." They walked out of the courtroom together. Raymond and Diana followed close behind. Miss Ruthie held Mama Joe's other arm. Outside, the sky was gray, but somewhere in the distance the clouds were breaking. Light was beginning to shine through. As they reached the car, Mama Joe stopped. She turned and looked back at the courthouse. "You know what my mama used to say?" Marcus shook his head. "She used to say, the truth might take a while, but it always finds its way home. I didn't believe her for a long time, but now I do." She looked up at her son. "Thank you for bringing me home, baby." Marcus opened the car door for her. "Always, Mama. Always." They drove away from the courthouse, leaving the shadows behind. The battle was not over. There would be more hearings, more investigations, more challenges ahead. But for the first time in 2 years, Mama Joe was free. And Marcus would make sure she stayed that way. The car disappeared down the driveway, but Marcus did not move from the courthouse steps. His mother's hand was still trembling in his. Miss Ruthie stood beside them, dabbing her eyes with a tissue. Raymond touched Marcus's shoulder. "We should get her home. She needs rest." Marcus nodded. He guided Mama Joe toward their car, his arm wrapped protectively around her shoulders. She felt so small against him, so fragile. How had he not noticed how thin she had become? They drove in silence. Mama Joe stared out the window, watching the Atlanta streets pass by. Her lips moved slightly as if she were praying. When they pulled into the driveway of the estate, Marcus felt something shift in his chest. The house looked different now. The windows that once seemed welcoming now felt like eyes that had witnessed too much suffering. He helped Mama Joe out of the car. She paused at the front door. "I never thought I'd feel safe walking through this door again," she whispered. Marcus squeezed her hand. "You're safe now, Mama. I promise." They walked inside together. Miss Ruthie went straight to the kitchen to prepare tea. Marcus settled Mama Joe in her favorite chair by the living room window. He pulled up a footstool and sat beside her. "How are you feeling?" Mama Joe let out a long breath. "Tired. So tired. But also lighter. Like I've been carrying a stone in my chest for 2 years, and someone finally took it away." "That stone is gone, Mama. It's never coming back." She reached out and touched his face. Her fingers were cool against his skin. "You came home at exactly the right time. 1 more week, Marcus. 1 more week and I don't know if I would have survived." The words hit him like a punch to the gut. "What do you mean?" Mama Joe's eyes grew distant. "The pills Veronica was giving me. They were making me weaker every day. I could feel myself slipping away. Some mornings I couldn't remember my own name. Some nights I thought I was already dead and just didn't know it yet." Marcus's hands clenched into fists. "They were poisoning you. Slowly killing you so they could take everything. I know that now, but back then I thought I was just getting old. I thought my mind was going. They told me I was crazy and I believed them." "You're not crazy, Mama. You never were." She smiled weakly. I know, baby. I know that now. Marcus's phone buzzed. He pulled it out and checked the screen. A text from Diana Wells. Just got word from the DA's office. They're filing criminal charges against Derek and Veronica tomorrow morning. Assault elder, abuse, financial exploitation, and attempted fraud. This is going to be big. Marcus read the message twice. Then he looked at his mother. They're filing criminal charges. Derek and Veronica are going to prison. Mama Jo closed her eyes. A single tear slipped down her cheek. Thank you, Jesus, she whispered. Thank you. The next 3 days passed in a blur of phone calls, meetings, and paperwork. Diana Wells came to the house twice to review documents. Raymond Blake coordinated with the financial investigators, who were tracing every dollar Derek and Veronica had stolen. The total was staggering. Over the past 2 years, they had siphoned nearly $400,000 from the accounts Marcus had set up for Mama Jo's care. They had sold her jewelry, forged her signature on documents, and were days away from filing paperwork that would have given them control of her entire estate. If you hadn't come home when you did, Raymond said during one of their meetings, they would have had everything. Your mother would have been declared mentally incompetent, and Veronica would have had full power of attorney. Marcus stared at the documents spread across his desk. How did I miss this? How did I not see what was happening? You trusted them. That's not a crime. The crime is what they did with that trust. On the 4th day, Marcus received a call he had been dreading. Derek. His half-brother's number appeared on the screen. Marcus hesitated for a moment, then answered. What do you want? Derek's voice was different now. The charm was gone. The pretense of brotherhood had evaporated. What remained was pure venom. You think you've won, don't you? You think you've destroyed me? I didn't destroy anything. You did that yourself. Derek laughed. It was a cold, ugly sound. You're just like Daddy, self-righteous, superior, acting like you're better than everyone else. This has nothing to do with Daddy. It has everything to do with him. He chose you. He gave you everything. And what did he give me? Nothing. Not even his name. Marcus's jaw tightened. That's not my fault. I didn't even know you existed until 5 years ago. Exactly, because I was his dirty little secret, the son he was ashamed of. And when you found out about me, what did you do? You threw me some scraps. A job. A room. Like I was some charity case. I gave you a chance. I welcomed you into my family. I tried to love you like a brother. Love. Derek spat the word. You don't know anything about love. You just wanted to feel good about yourself. The generous millionaire taking pity on his poor half-brother. It made you feel noble. Marcus closed his eyes. The anger was rising in his chest, but he forced himself to stay calm. What do you want, Derek? Why are you calling me? There was a pause. When Derek spoke again, his voice had dropped to something almost like a whisper. I want you to know that this isn't over. You might have the court on your side now, but courts can be wrong. Evidence can be challenged. Witnesses can change their stories. Is that a threat? It's a promise. I'm going to fight this, Marcus. I'm going to fight it with everything I have. And when I'm done, you're going to regret the day you ever crossed me. Marcus's voice hardened. You hurt my mother. You beat her. You drugged her. You tried to steal everything she had. There's nothing you can say or do that will make me regret protecting her. We'll see about that. The line went dead. Marcus sat still for a long moment. His heart was pounding. His hands were shaking, but not with fear, with rage. He walked to his mother's room. She was sitting by the window reading her Bible. She looked up when he entered. What's wrong, baby? You look troubled. Marcus sat down beside her. Derek called. He's threatening to fight the charges. Mama Jo nodded slowly. I expected that. A snake doesn't stop being a snake just because you cut off its tail. He said he's going to make me regret this. Do you? Marcus looked at his mother, at the lines on her face that told the story of a life full of struggle and sacrifice, at the eyes that still held so much love, despite everything she had endured. "Not for 1 second," he said. "Not for one single second." Mama Joe smiled. She reached out and took his hand. "Then let him fight. We've got the truth on our side, and the truth always wins in the end." That night Marcus couldn't sleep. He paced his study, going over the evidence, the testimony, the charges. Everything pointed to Derek and Veronica's guilt. But Derek's words kept echoing in his mind. Witnesses can change their stories. He thought about Miss Ruthie. She had been so brave on the witness stand. But she was also vulnerable. Derek and Veronica had threatened her before. What if they tried again? He picked up his phone and called Raymond. "I need security for Miss Ruthie, around the clock." "What happened?" "Derek called. He's not going down without a fight. I don't want anyone who testified against him to be in danger." Raymond was quiet for a moment. "I'll arrange it first thing in the morning. Anyone else you're worried about?" Marcus thought about his mother, about the fear in her eyes that was only just beginning to fade. "Everyone, Raymond. I'm worried about everyone." The next morning, Marcus hired a private security team, 2 guards for the house, one specifically assigned to Miss Ruthie. He wasn't taking any chances. At noon, Diana Wells called with an update. "The arraignment is scheduled for tomorrow. Derek and Veronica will be formally charged. The DA is pushing for no bail given the severity of the crimes and the threat to the victim." "What are the chances they'll be denied bail?" "Good. The judge saw Mama Joe's testimony. She saw the evidence. But Derek has hired a very expensive lawyer. Alan Pierce. He's known for getting clients out of impossible situations. Money can't change the facts. No, but it can complicate them. Be prepared for a fight." Marcus hung up and walked to the kitchen. Mama Joe was sitting at the table with Miss Ruthie shelling peas. It was such a simple scene, so peaceful. He wanted to preserve this moment forever. "Mama, the arraignment is tomorrow. Do you want to be there?" Mama Joe set down the bowl of peas. Her hands were steadier than they had been a week ago. "I'll be there," she said. "I want to look them in the eyes when the judge reads the charges." "Are you sure it might be hard?" "Hard." Mama Joe's voice strengthened. "Baby, I worked 12-hour shifts cleaning other people's houses while raising you alone. I buried my husband. I survived things that would break most people. Sitting in a courtroom watching justice being served. That's not hard. That's a blessing." Miss Ruthie reached over and squeezed Mama Joe's hand. "I'll be right there with you, Mrs. Joe." Marcus felt his throat tighten. These 2 women, they had been through so much, and they were still standing. "Then we'll all go together," he said, "as a family." The next morning they arrived at the courthouse at 8:30. The hallways were already crowded with reporters. News of the case had spread. A millionaire's family torn apart by elder abuse and betrayal. It was the kind of story that sold papers and drove clicks. Raymond met them at the entrance. "There's a back door. We can avoid the press." Marcus shook his head. "No, we walk in through the front. We have nothing to hide." They pushed through the crowd. Cameras flashed. Microphones were thrust in their faces. "Mr. Johnson, do you have any comment on the charges against your brother?" "Mrs. Johnson, how do you feel about seeing your attackers in court?" Marcus kept his arm around his mother, guiding her forward. He did not stop. He did not answer. Inside the courtroom, they took their seats behind the prosecution's table. Diana Wells was already there, reviewing her notes. A few minutes later, Derek and Veronica were led in. They were in handcuffs. Veronica's face was pale, her makeup smudged. She had been crying. Derek's expression was harder, defiant. He scanned the courtroom until his eyes found Marcus. The look he gave was pure hatred. Marcus did not look away. The judge entered, the same Judge Patricia Coleman who had presided over the emergency hearing. "All rise." Everyone stood. Judge Coleman took her seat and looked over the courtroom. "We are here for the arraignment of Derek Hayes and Veronica Hayes on charges of elder abuse assault, financial exploitation, and attempted fraud. How did the defendants plead?" Alan Pierce stood. Not guilty, Your Honor, on all charges. A murmur rippled through the courtroom. Judge Coleman nodded. So noted. The prosecution has requested that the defendants be held without bail. Mr. Pierce. Alan Pierce stepped forward. Your Honor, my clients are not flight risks. They have deep ties to this community. Mr. Hayes has a job. Mrs. Hayes has family in the area. They are prepared to surrender their passports and submit to any monitoring the court deems appropriate. Diana Wells stood. Your Honor, the defendants have shown a pattern of intimidation and threats against the victim and witnesses. We have documented evidence that they attempted to isolate Mrs. Josephine Johnson from her family and manipulate her into signing over her assets. Releasing them on bail would put the victim at continued risk. Judge Coleman's eyes moved between the two lawyers. I've reviewed the evidence submitted by the prosecution. The severity of the alleged crimes and the vulnerability of the victim are deeply concerning to this court. She paused. Bail is denied. The defendants will be held in custody until trial. Derek shot to his feet. This is wrong. You can't do this. Mr. Hayes, sit down immediately. She's lying. They're all lying. My brother set me up. He's trying to destroy me because he's jealous. Jealous? Judge Coleman's voice cut like ice. Of what, Mr. Hayes? You're the one facing criminal charges. You're the one who stands accused of beating an elderly woman. What exactly would your brother be jealous of? Derek's face twisted. He's always hated me. From the moment I came into his life, he never wanted a brother. He just wanted to feel good about himself. Marcus stood up. His voice was calm, but carried across the courtroom. I wanted a brother, Derek, more than anything. I wanted someone who shared my blood, someone who could understand where I came from. But you didn't want a brother. You wanted what I had. And when you couldn't get it honestly, you tried to take it by destroying the person I love most in this world. Derek's face contorted with rage. You don't know anything about me. I know enough. I know you're a coward who beats old women. I know you're a thief who steals from the helpless. And I know you're going to spend a very long time in prison thinking about what you've done. The courtroom erupted. Reporters were scribbling furiously. The bailiffs moved toward Derek. Judge Coleman struck her gavel. Order, order in this court. The noise died down. Judge Coleman looked at Derek with barely concealed disgust. Mr. Hayes, one more outburst and I will add contempt charges to your already impressive list of offenses. Do I make myself clear? Derek said nothing. His lawyer pulled him back into his seat. Judge Coleman turned to address the courtroom. Trial is scheduled for 60 days from today. The defendants will remain in custody. Court is adjourned. She struck her gavel one final time. Outside the courtroom, the press was waiting. Marcus guided his mother through the crowd, ignoring the shouted questions. They reached the car. Marcus helped Mama Jo into the back seat. She was trembling, but when she looked at him, her eyes were clear. You stood up for me in there, she said. In front of everyone. Of course I did. No, baby. You don't understand. For 2 years I thought I was alone. I thought nobody would ever believe me. I thought I would die in that house and nobody would ever know what they did to me. Tears streamed down her face. But you believed me. You fought for me, in front of the whole world. Marcus took her hands in his. I will always fight for you, Mama. Always. They drove home in silence. But it was a different kind of silence than before. It was the silence of peace, of safety, of a storm that had finally passed. When they arrived at the estate, Miss Ruthie was waiting at the door. I saw it on the news, she said. They showed the whole thing. You were so brave, Mr. Marcus. And Mrs. Jo, you looked so strong. Mama Jo smiled. I felt strong, for the first time in years. They went inside. Marcus made tea while Miss Ruthie helped Mama Jo settle into her chair. The afternoon light streamed through the windows, warm and golden. Marcus's phone buzzed. A text from Raymond. The financial investigators found something. Derek and Veronica weren't working alone. There's a third person involved. Someone who helped them set up the shell accounts. We need to talk. Marcus read the message 3 times. A third person. Someone else had been helping them. Someone who was still out there. He looked at his mother, peaceful in her chair, finally safe. He thought about everything they had been through, everything they had overcome, and he realized the fight was not over yet. He typed back a response. "I'm on my way." He kissed his mother's forehead. "I have to step out for a bit, Mama. Raymond needs to see me." Mama Joe looked up at him. "Is everything okay?" Marcus forced a smile. "Everything is fine. I'll be back before dinner." He walked out of the house, his mind racing. Who else was involved? How deep did this conspiracy go? And most importantly, were his mother and Miss Ruthie truly safe? The answers were waiting, and Marcus was determined to find them, no matter what it took. Marcus drove to Raymond's office with his knuckles white on the steering wheel. A third person. The words kept repeating in his mind. Someone else had been helping Derek and Veronica. Someone who was still free, still dangerous. He parked and walked into the building. Raymond was waiting in his office with two men Marcus did not recognize. "Marcus, this is David Chen and Michael Torres. They're the financial investigators I hired to trace the money." Marcus shook their hands. "What did you find?" David Chen opened a laptop and turned it toward Marcus. "We followed the money from the accounts your mother's funds were transferred into. Most of it went directly to Derek and Veronica, but a significant portion, nearly $80,000, was routed to a third account." "Whose account?" Michael Torres slid a folder across the desk. "That's where it gets complicated. The account is registered to a shell company called Sunrise Holdings. We traced the ownership through 3 different states. The trail was designed to be impossible to follow." "But you followed it." "We did." Torres paused. "The beneficial owner of Sunrise Holdings is a woman named Patricia Coleman." Marcus froze. "Patricia Coleman, the judge." Raymond shook his head. "Different Patricia Coleman. This one is 62 years old, lives in Savannah, no connection to the court system." "Then who is she?" David Chen pulled up a photograph on his laptop. Marcus stared at the screen. The woman in the photograph had gray hair, sharp eyes, and a familiar face. It took him a moment to place it. "That's Veronica's mother." Raymond nodded slowly. "We confirmed it this morning. Patricia Coleman is Veronica Hayes's biological mother. She legally changed her name 15 years ago after a bankruptcy case. Her original name was Patricia Wallace." Marcus's mind was racing. "So Veronica's mother was in on this the whole time?" "It appears so. The money was flowing to her account in regular installments. She was the financial architect of the entire scheme." Marcus slammed his fist on the desk. "They had this planned from the beginning, before Veronica even married Derek, before they moved into my house. This was a long con." Torres nodded. "Based on the timeline of the financial transfers, we believe the conspiracy began at least 3 years ago, possibly longer." 3 years. Marcus thought back. 3 years ago, Derek had just started working at his company. Veronica had been his girlfriend then, not yet his wife. She had been sweet, charming, always asking about the family, about Mama Joe, about the estate. He had thought she was just being friendly. Now he understood. She had been gathering intelligence. "Where is Patricia Coleman now?" "Savannah. We have her address." Marcus stood up. "I want her arrested." Raymond raised his hand. "We need to do this carefully. If we tip her off, she could destroy evidence. Or worse, warn Derek and Veronica. We need to coordinate with the DA's office." "Then coordinate, but I want her in handcuffs by tomorrow." Raymond nodded. "I'll make the calls." Marcus left the office with his head pounding. The conspiracy was bigger than he had imagined. His mother had been targeted, deliberately, systematically, by people who had planned every detail years in advance. He called Diana Wells on the way home. "I just met with the investigators. Veronica's mother is involved. She was receiving the stolen money." Diana's voice was sharp. "Patricia Wallace. I should have known." "You know her." "I know of her. She has a reputation in certain circles. Con artist. Grifter. She was suspected of running an insurance fraud scheme 10 years ago, but they could never prove it. She's smart, careful, never leaves fingerprints. She left fingerprints this time. Then we need to move fast before she realizes we're onto her. Marcus hung up as he pulled into his driveway. The security guards nodded as he passed through the gate. Inside, Mama Jo was in the kitchen with Miss Ruthie. They were making cornbread, and for a moment Marcus just stood in the doorway watching them. His mother was humming, an old hymn she used to sing when he was a child. He had not heard her hum in years. "You're back early," Mama Jo said without turning around. "Did everything go okay with Raymond?" Marcus hesitated. He did not want to burden her with this new development, not yet, not when she was finally starting to heal. "Everything's fine, Mama, just some paperwork." She turned and looked at him. Her eyes were sharp, knowing. "Marcus Anthony Johnson, I have known you for 45 years. I can tell when you're lying to me." Miss Ruthie quietly stepped out of the kitchen, giving them privacy. Marcus sighed. "There's been a development. Veronica's mother was involved in the scheme. She was receiving the money they stole." Mama Jo's face hardened. "That woman. I met her once, at Derek and Veronica's wedding. She smiled at me and called me dear. Said she was so happy her daughter had found such a wonderful family. She was playing a role. They were all playing roles, the whole time." Mama Jo shook her head. "How much did she take?" $80,000, maybe more." "Lord have mercy." Marcus walked to his mother and took her hands. "They're going to arrest her, tomorrow if everything goes according to plan." "And then what? How many more people are involved in this? How deep does it go?" "I don't know yet, but I'm going to find out." Mama Jo squeezed his hands. "Be careful, baby. People like this, they don't give up easy. When you corner a snake, that's when it's most dangerous." "I know, Mama. I know." That night, Marcus could not sleep. He sat in his study going through every document, every photograph, every piece of evidence they had gathered. Around midnight, his phone rang. It was Raymond. "We have a problem." Marcus's stomach dropped. "What happened?" "Patricia Coleman. She's gone. We sent investigators to her address in Savannah. The house is empty. Neighbors say she left 2 days ago with a suitcase. She knew we were coming. Someone tipped her off." Marcus's blood went cold. Who could have tipped her off? That's what we're trying to figure out. The only people who knew about the investigation were you, me, the investigators, and Diana Wells. You think there's a leak? I don't know what to think. But Patricia Coleman didn't just disappear by coincidence. Someone warned her. Marcus hung up and sat in the darkness. His mind was spinning. Someone had warned Patricia Coleman. Someone close to the investigation. Someone he trusted. He thought about Raymond. They had known each other for 20 years. Raymond had helped him build his empire. He was the closest thing Marcus had to a best friend. He thought about Diana Wells. She had been recommended by Raymond. Highly respected. An expert in elder law. He thought about the investigators. David Chen and Michael Torres. Strangers. Professionals, but strangers nonetheless. Someone had betrayed him. And until he knew who, he could not trust anyone. The next morning, Marcus called an emergency meeting at his house. Raymond, Diana, and the investigators all arrived within the hour. Patricia Coleman is gone, Marcus said without preamble. Someone warned her. I want to know who. The room went silent. Raymond spoke first. Marcus, I understand your concern, but we need to be careful about making accusations. I'm not making accusations. I'm asking questions. Only 5 people knew about this investigation. She vanished 2 days before we planned to arrest her. That's not coincidence. Diana leaned forward. It could be someone else, a friend, a neighbor, someone who saw the investigators asking questions. The investigators were discreet, Torres said. We didn't approach anyone directly. We did everything through records and surveillance. Marcus looked at each of them in turn. Raymond, Diana, Chen, Torres. One of them was lying. One of them had sold him out. Or maybe none of them had. His phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "You're looking in the wrong direction. Check the guard." Marcus stared at the message. The guard. He had hired security 3 days ago. 2 guards for the house, 1 for Miss Ruthie. "Excuse me," he said. "I need to make a call." He stepped out of the room and dialed the security company. "This is Marcus Johnson. I need the personnel files for the guards you assigned to my property." 20 minutes later, he had the files in his email. He opened them one by one. The first guard was clean. Former military. 10 years with the company. Spotless record. The second guard was clean. Former police officer. 8 years with the company. No red flags. The third guard made Marcus's blood run cold. James Patterson, 34 years old. Former corrections officer. Assigned to Miss Ruthie. His emergency contact was listed as Patricia Wallace. Patricia Wallace, Veronica's mother's original name. The guard he had hired to protect Miss Ruthie was Patricia Coleman's grandson. Marcus ran back to the meeting room. "We need to get to Miss Ruthie. Now." Raymond stood up. "What's going on?" "The guard I hired, the one protecting Miss Ruthie. He's Patricia Coleman's grandson. He's been feeding them information the whole time." Diana grabbed her phone. "I'll call the police." Marcus was already moving. "There's no time." He sprinted to his car, Raymond close behind. "Call Miss Ruthie," Marcus shouted. "Tell her to lock herself in a room and not open the door for anyone." Raymond dialed. The phone rang, and rang, and rang. No answer. Marcus drove faster than he had ever driven in his life. Miss Ruthie's apartment was 15 minutes away. He made it in 8. He slammed the car into park and ran to her door. It was open. "Miss Ruthie." Silence. He pushed inside. The apartment was empty. Signs of struggle. A broken lamp. Scattered papers. On the kitchen table was a note. "You took everything from us. Now we take everything from you. If you want to see her alive again, you'll drop all charges against Derek and Veronica. You have 24 hours. Marcus's hands shook as he read the words. They had taken Miss Ruthie. Raymond appeared behind him. "Marcus, the police are on their way." Marcus could not speak. He could not breathe. Miss Ruthie, the woman who had stood by his mother for 8 years, the woman who had risked everything to testify, the woman who had become family. She was gone, and it was his fault. He had hired the guard. He had trusted the wrong people. He had put her in danger. 24 hours, he whispered. "They gave me 24 hours. Raymond read the note over his shoulder. "You can't give in to this. You can't let them blackmail you. They have Miss Ruthie." "I know. And we're going to get her back. But if you drop the charges, Derek and Veronica walk free. They win. And Miss Ruthie's sacrifice means nothing." Marcus turned to face his friend. His eyes were burning with tears and rage. "Then tell me what to do. Tell me how to save her without letting them win." Raymond's voice was steady. "We find them before the 24 hours are up. We find them and we bring Miss Ruthie home. How Patricia Coleman is gone. The guard is gone. They could be anywhere." "Not anywhere. They're somewhere close. They want to watch this play out. They want to see you suffer. People like this, they can't resist being close to their victims." Marcus wiped his eyes. "Then we start looking. Now." The next 12 hours were the longest of Marcus's life. Police swarmed the city. The FBI was contacted. Every resource Marcus had was deployed to find Miss Ruthie. But there was nothing. No leads, no sightings, no ransom calls. Mama Jo sat in her chair at home, clutching her Bible, praying without ceasing. When Marcus came to check on her, she grabbed his hand. "You're going to find her, baby. I know you are." "I'm trying, Mama. I'm trying so hard." "Ruth is strong. She's a fighter. She won't give up and neither can you." Marcus knelt beside his mother's chair. "I put her in danger. I hired that guard. I trusted the wrong person." Mama Jo shook her head. "You didn't put her in danger. Those monsters did. You've been trying to protect everyone from the moment you came home. This is not your fault. But if I had been more careful—" "Stop!" Mama Jo's voice was firm. Blaming yourself doesn't help Ruth. Finding her does. Now stand up, dry your eyes, and do what you do best. What's that? Fight. You've been fighting your whole life, Marcus. Fighting to get out of poverty. Fighting to build your business. Fighting for this family. Don't stop now. Marcus stood. He kissed his mother's forehead. I won't stop. I promise. At 10 o'clock that night, Marcus received a call from Detective Sarah Mitchell, the lead investigator on the kidnapping case. Mr. Johnson, we may have something. A security camera at a gas station outside the city picked up James Patterson's car. He was heading south on I-75, towards Savannah. That's what we're thinking. We've alerted law enforcement in that area. We're closing in. I want to be there. Mr. Johnson, I understand how you feel, but this is a police matter. You need to let us handle it. Miss Ruthie is family. I'm not sitting at home while you rescue her. There was a pause. Fine. Meet us at the precinct. But you follow our lead. Understood? Understood. Marcus hung up and grabbed his keys. 2 hours later, he was in a police convoy heading south on I-75. Detective Mitchell was in the lead car. Marcus was in the back seat of an unmarked vehicle, his heart pounding with every mile. At 1 in the morning, they reached a small town outside Savannah. The convoy pulled into a parking lot across from a rundown motel. Detective Mitchell approached Marcus's vehicle. Patterson's car is parked at room 14. We have officers surrounding the building. We're going in. Marcus started to open his door. Mitchell held up her hand. You stay here. We don't know what we're walking into. Marcus wanted to argue. Every instinct screamed at him to go in there himself, but he knew she was right. Bring her back safe, he said. Mitchell nodded. That's the plan. She walked away and joined her team. Marcus watched as officers moved into position. He saw them approach the door, saw them knock, saw the door burst open, shouting, running, the crack of a gunshot. Marcus's heart stopped. Then silence. Minutes passed. They felt like hours. Finally, Detective Mitchell emerged from the motel room. Behind her, 2 officers were escorting a handcuffed man, James Patterson. And behind them, supported by a female officer, was Miss Ruthie. She was alive. Marcus threw open the car door and ran toward her. Miss Ruthie saw him coming and started to cry. Mr. Marcus, Mr. Marcus. He reached her and pulled her into his arms. She was trembling, bruised, but alive. You're safe now, he whispered. You're safe. They were going to kill me. They said if you didn't drop the charges by tomorrow, they were going to kill me and dump my body where nobody would ever find it. They're never going to hurt you again. I promise. Detective Mitchell approached. We got Patterson. We're still looking for Patricia Coleman. She wasn't in the room. She'll turn up, Marcus said. She can't run forever. Mitchell nodded. We'll keep searching. In the meantime, let's get Miss Williams to a hospital. Marcus helped Miss Ruthie to the ambulance that had arrived. She clutched his hand the entire time. I was so scared, Mr. Marcus. I thought I was going to die. You didn't die. You survived, because you're strong, just like my mother always said. Miss Ruthie smiled through her tears. Your mama, she must be so worried. She's praying. She never stopped praying? Then those prayers worked. Marcus rode with her to the hospital. He called Mama Joe from the ambulance. We found her, Mama. Miss Ruthie is safe. On the other end of the line, Mama Joe let out a sound that was half sob, half praise. Thank you, Jesus. Thank you, Lord. We're taking her to the hospital to get checked out. I'll bring her home as soon as the doctors clear her. You tell her I love her. You tell her she's family. I will, Mama. I will. At the hospital, the doctors examined Miss Ruthie. She had bruises, a mild concussion, dehydration, but nothing permanent, nothing that would not heal. Marcus sat by her bed while she rested. I'm sorry, he said quietly. I'm so sorry I put you in danger. Miss Ruthie opened her eyes. You didn't put me in danger, Mr. Marcus. You saved me. You never gave up. I should have been more careful about who I trusted. You trusted because you have a good heart. That's not a weakness. That's a strength. Marcus shook his head. It doesn't feel like strength right now. Miss Ruthie reached out and took his hand. Let me tell you something my grandmother used to say. She said the devil attacks hardest when you're doing the Lord's work. You're protecting your mama. You're fighting for justice. Of course the devil is going to fight back. But that doesn't mean you stop. It means you're doing something right. Marcus looked at this woman. This 60-year-old housekeeper who had more wisdom and courage than most people he had ever met. How are you so strong after everything you've been through? Miss Ruthie smiled. The same way your mama is strong. Faith, family, and knowing that the truth always wins in the end. 3 days later, Patricia Coleman was arrested at a bus station in Jacksonville. She was trying to board a Greyhound to Miami when the FBI caught up with her. Marcus watched the news coverage from his living room. Mama Jo sat beside him. Miss Ruthie was there too, still recovering, but refusing to stay in bed. They got her, Miss Ruthie said. They finally got her. Mama Jo squeezed Marcus's hand. It's over, baby. It's really over. Marcus looked at the television screen, at Patricia Coleman being led away in handcuffs, at the reporters swarming around her. Not yet, he said. The trial hasn't started. Derek and Veronica haven't been convicted. There's still a long road ahead. But we've come so far, Mama Jo said. Look at where we were 2 weeks ago. I was a prisoner in my own home. Now I'm free. Ruth is safe. The truth is coming out. Marcus nodded slowly. You're right, Mama. We have come far. And we're going to keep going. Together. As a family. Miss Ruthie raised her cup of tea. To family. Mama Jo raised hers. To justice. Marcus raised his. To the truth. They drank together. And for the first time since this nightmare began, Marcus allowed himself to feel something he had almost forgotten. Hope. The trial date arrived faster than anyone expected. 6 weeks after Patricia Coleman's arrest, the courtroom was packed with reporters, spectators, and cameras from every major network in the country. Marcus sat behind the prosecution's table with Mama Jo on one side and Miss Ruthie on the other. Both women wore their Sunday best. Mama Jo had her Bible in her lap. Miss Ruthie clutched a tissue in her hand. Derek, Veronica, and Patricia Coleman sat at the defendant's table. They were dressed in prison jumpsuits. The expensive suits and designer dresses were gone. So were the smiles. Alan Pierce, their lawyer, had tried everything to delay the trial. He had filed motions, challenged evidence, attempted to discredit witnesses. Nothing worked. Judge Patricia Coleman entered the courtroom. Same name as the defendant, no relation. The irony was not lost on anyone. All rise. Everyone stood. The judge took her seat and surveyed the room. This court is now in session. The state of Georgia versus Derek Hayes, Veronica Hayes, and Patricia Coleman. The defendants are charged with elder abuse assault, financial exploitation, kidnapping, and conspiracy to commit murder. Let us proceed. Diana Wells stood for her opening statement. Your Honor, members of the jury, over the next several days, you will hear testimony that will shock you. You will hear how 3 people conspired over multiple years to abuse, exploit, and ultimately plan the death of a 78-year-old woman. You will hear how they beat her, drugged her, isolated her from her family, stole nearly $500,000 from her accounts. And when their scheme was exposed, you will hear how they kidnapped an innocent woman and threatened to murder her. She paused, letting the words settle. The defendants will try to convince you that this was a misunderstanding, that the victim is confused, that the witnesses are lying. But the evidence will speak for itself. Bank records, medical reports, security footage, testimony from people who saw the abuse with their own eyes. Diana turned and pointed at the defendants. These 3 people are not victims of circumstance. They are predators who targeted a vulnerable woman and destroyed her life for money, and they must be held accountable. She sat down. Alan Pierce stood for the defense. Your Honor, members of the jury, my clients are not monsters. They are human beings who made mistakes. Derek Hayes is a man who grew up without a father, who was abandoned by the man who should have protected him. He came into the Johnson family looking for connection, looking for belonging. And yes, there were conflicts. Yes, there were arguments. But that is not abuse. That is family. Marcus felt his jaw tighten. The prosecution wants you to believe a story of villains and victims. But life is not that simple. Josephine Johnson is an elderly woman with documented memory issues. Her testimony is unreliable. The so-called witnesses have their own motivations. And the financial transactions that the prosecution calls theft were actually legitimate transfers authorized by Mrs. Johnson herself. Pierce turned to face the jury directly. The state has not proven its case beyond a reasonable doubt. And in America, that is what matters. Not emotions, not assumptions, evidence, and the evidence simply is not there. He sat down. Diana Wells called her first witness. The prosecution calls Dr. Jennifer Morrison. A woman in her 50s approached the stand. She was the physician who had examined Mama Jo after the abuse was discovered. Dr. Morrison, can you describe the physical condition of Mrs. Johnson? When you first examined her, she was severely malnourished, dehydrated. She had multiple bruises on her arms, wrists, and face, in various stages of healing, indicating repeated trauma over an extended period. She also showed signs of medication toxicity, consistent with being given improper doses of sedatives. In your professional opinion, were these injuries consistent with accidental falls? Absolutely not. The pattern of bruising was consistent with grabbing, pushing, and striking. These were not accidents. These were deliberate acts of violence. Pierce stood for cross-examination. Dr. Morrison, is it true that elderly patients often bruise more easily than younger people? Yes, that is true. And is it possible that some of these bruises could have resulted from Mrs. Johnson bumping into furniture or falling? Possible, but unlikely given the pattern and distribution. But possible. Anything is possible, Mr. Pierce. But when I see a 78-year-old woman with grab marks on her wrists and a black eye that clearly came from a fist, I know what I'm looking at. And so do you. The courtroom stirred. Pierce's face tightened. No further questions. Diana called her next witness. The prosecution calls Miss Ruth Williams. Miss Ruthie stood. Her legs trembled slightly as she walked to the stand. Marcus gave her an encouraging nod. She raised her right hand and swore to tell the truth. Diana approached gently. Miss Williams, can you describe what you witnessed during your time working in the Johnson household? Miss Ruthie took a deep breath. I saw things that haunted me every night. I saw Mr. Derek grab Mrs. Jo by the arm and shove her against the wall because she forgot to take her medicine. I saw Mrs. Veronica slap her across the face because she asked too many questions. I heard them threaten her. They told her if she ever said anything to her son, they would put her in a home where she would die alone. Why didn't you report this sooner? Tears filled Miss Ruthie's eyes. They threatened me too. Mrs. Veronica said she would have me deported. She said she would ruin my grandson's education. I was scared. I had worked my whole life to give my family a better future. I couldn't risk losing everything. What changed? Mr. Marcus came home. He saw what was happening. He believed his mother. And for the first time, I felt like someone would protect us. Pierce stood for cross-examination. His tone was harsh. Miss Williams, isn't it true that you were reprimanded multiple times for poor work performance? That is not true. Isn't it true that Mrs. Hayes caught you stealing silverware from the house? Miss Ruthie's eyes widened with shock and anger. That is a lie. I have never stolen anything in my life. But you did testify against my clients in exchange for immunity from prosecution, didn't you? I testified because I saw what they did. I testified because Mrs. Jo was suffering and nobody was helping her. I testified because it was the right thing to do. Pierce stepped closer. You testified to save yourself. That's the truth, isn't it? Miss Ruthie stood up in the witness box. The truth is that your clients are evil people who hurt an old woman for money. The truth is that they kidnapped me and threatened to kill me. The truth is that I almost died because of them. So don't you stand there and call me a liar. The courtroom erupted. Judge Coleman struck her gavel. Order. Order in this court. Pierce backed away. No further questions. Miss Ruthie stepped down, her whole body shaking. Marcus met her at the edge of the gallery and took her hand. You did great, he whispered. You did amazing. I couldn't let him twist the truth. I couldn't let him win. He won't win, I promise. Diana called her next witness. The prosecution calls Josephine Johnson. The courtroom fell completely silent. Mama Jo stood. She moved slowly, leaning on her cane, but her back was straight and her chin was high. She walked to the witness stand with the dignity of a queen. She raised her right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Her voice was clear and strong. I do. She sat down and looked directly at the jury. Diana approached. Mrs. Johnson, can you tell the court in your own words what happened to you over the past 2 years? Mama Jo nodded. 2 years ago, I welcomed Derek and Veronica into my home. My son Marcus had found Derek, his half-brother, and I wanted to love him. I wanted to make him feel like family. I thought if I showed him enough kindness, he would become the brother my son never had. She paused. But I was wrong. Derek didn't want a family. He wanted what my son had built. He wanted the money, the house, the respect. And when he couldn't get it through kindness, he took it through cruelty. Can you describe specific incidents of abuse? Mama Jo's hands tightened on the arms of the chair. He hit me, many times. When I asked questions, when I forgot things, when I tried to call my son, he would grab my arm and squeeze until I cried. He would slap me across the face and tell me to shut up. He told me I was worthless, that my son didn't love me, that nobody would believe me if I tried to say anything. And Veronica Hayes. She was worse in some ways. Derek used his fists. Veronica used words. She would whisper terrible things to me when nobody was listening. She told me I was taking up space in my own home. She told me that when I died, nobody would miss me. She took my medication and gave me different pills. Pills that made me feel confused, lost, like I was losing my mind. And Patricia Coleman. Mama Jo looked at the third defendant. I only met her once, at Derek and Veronica's wedding. She seemed nice. Now I know she was the one pulling the strings. She was the one who taught her daughter how to steal, how to lie, how to destroy an old woman's life. Diana nodded. Thank you, Mrs. Johnson. No further questions. Pierce stood for cross-examination. He approached carefully this time. The jury was already hostile to him after his treatment of Miss Ruthie. Mrs. Johnson, you mentioned experiencing confusion, memory issues. Is it possible that some of your recollections are inaccurate? Mama Jo looked at him steadily. Mr. Pierce, I am 78 years old. I have lived through things you cannot imagine. I remember the names of every child I helped raise while cleaning rich people's houses. I remember the face of every bill collector who knocked on my door when we had nothing. I remember the sound of my son's first cry when he was born in a hospital, where they almost turned us away because we couldn't pay. My memory is fine, and I remember exactly what those 3 people did to me. Pierce hesitated. But the medication you were given, you said it made you confused. The medication they forced on me made me confused. That was the point. They wanted me to seem senile so nobody would believe me. But I'm not senile. I was poisoned, and now the poison is out of my system and I can see clearly again. Mrs. Johnson, isn't it possible that your son has influenced your testimony, that he has coached you to say these things? Mama Jo's eyes flashed. My son didn't have to coach me to remember being beaten. My son didn't have to coach me to remember being threatened. My son came home and saw the truth with his own eyes. He believed me when nobody else would, And if you think I'm going to sit here and let you insult him, you are sadly mistaken." The courtroom stirred. Several jurors were nodding. Pierce knew he was losing. No further questions. Mama Jo stepped down from the witness stand. Marcus met her and helped her back to her seat. "You were incredible, Mama." "I just told the truth. That's all I've ever done." The trial continued for 3 more days. Diana Wells presented bank records, medical reports, security footage, and testimony from the investigators who had traced the money. Pierce tried to poke holes in every piece of evidence. He challenged the authenticity of documents. He questioned the credibility of witnesses. He argued that the defendants were victims of a vindictive family member, but the evidence was overwhelming. On the 4th day, the prosecution rested. Pierce presented his defense. He called character witnesses who described Derek and Veronica as loving people. He brought in a psychiatrist who suggested that Mama Jo's age made her an unreliable witness. He even put Derek on the stand. It was a disaster. "Mr. Hayes," Pierce asked, "can you describe your relationship with your stepmother?" Derek leaned forward. "I loved Mama Jo. I never wanted to hurt her. Everything that happened was a misunderstanding." Diana stood for cross-examination. "Mr. Hayes, you say you loved Mrs. Johnson. Is that why you hit her?" "I never hit her." Diana held up a photograph. "This is a photograph of Mrs. Johnson's face, taken 3 days after your arrest. Can you explain the black eye?" "She fell. She fell onto a fist." Derek's face reddened. "I don't know how she got that bruise. Let me refresh your memory." Diana played the audio recording from the hidden cameras. Derek's voice filled the courtroom. "I said, 'Sign the papers, old woman. Sign them now, or I swear to God next time it won't just be my hand.'" The courtroom gasped. Derek's composure shattered. "That's not what I meant. I was frustrated. She wouldn't listen." "You were frustrated, so you threatened her. You were frustrated, so you beat her. You were frustrated, so you planned to steal everything she had and let her die. Is that your defense?" "Mr. Hayes' frustration..." Derek shot to his feet. "You don't know what it's like. You don't know what it's like to be the son nobody wanted. The one who got thrown away. My father chose Marcus. He chose that family. And I got nothing. Nothing. So you decided to take what you thought you deserved, by any means necessary. I deserved it. I deserved all of it. And if that old woman had just signed the papers, none of this would have happened." The courtroom exploded. Jurors were shaking their heads. Derek's own lawyer dropped his face into his hands. Judge Coleman struck her gavel repeatedly. "Order, order!" Derek was still shouting as the bailiffs approached him. "I'm the victim here. I'm the one who was abandoned. I'm the one who was forgotten." They forced him back into his seat. His face was red. Sweat poured down his forehead. Diana turned to the jury. No further questions. The defense rested. Closing arguments came the next day. Diana Wells stood before the jury one final time. Over the past week, you have heard testimony that revealed the true nature of the defendants. You have heard how they systematically abused, exploited, and terrorized a 78-year-old woman. You have heard how they stole from her, drugged her, isolated her, threatened her. And when their scheme was exposed, you heard how they kidnapped an innocent woman and planned to murder her. She paused. The defense wants you to believe this was a misunderstanding, a family dispute that got out of hand. But what you witnessed in this courtroom was not a misunderstanding. You heard Derek Hayes in his own words admit that he felt entitled to what Mrs. Johnson had. You heard him say that if she had just signed the papers, none of this would have happened. Diana walked closer to the jury box. That is not the statement of an innocent man. That is the statement of a predator who believes his victim deserved what she got. She turned and pointed at the defendants. Josephine Johnson survived Jim Crow. She survived poverty. She survived losing her husband. She survived 2 years of abuse at the hands of people she welcomed into her home. She is a survivor. And today, she is asking you to deliver justice. Diana's voice softened. Do not let her down. She sat down. Pierce gave his closing argument. He talked about reasonable doubt, about the complexity of family relationships, about the dangers of believing everything you hear. But his words fell flat. The jury had already made up their minds. Judge Coleman sent the jury to deliberate. They were back in 4 hours. "Has the jury reached a verdict?" The foreman stood. "We have, Your Honor." "On the charge of elder abuse, how do you find the defendant Derek Hayes?" "Guilty." "On the charge of assault?" "Guilty." "On the charge of financial exploitation?" "Guilty." "On the charge of kidnapping?" "Guilty." "On the charge of conspiracy to commit murder?" "Guilty." The foreman continued through the charges for Veronica and Patricia Coleman. "Guilty. Guilty. Guilty. Every single count." Mama Joe squeezed Marcus's hand so hard he thought she might break his fingers. Miss Ruthie burst into tears. Derek slumped in his chair. Veronica screamed. Patricia Coleman stared straight ahead, her face pale as death. Judge Coleman struck her gavel. "Sentencing will be scheduled for 2 weeks from today. The defendants are remanded to custody. Court is adjourned." Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed around Marcus and his family. Cameras flashed. Microphones were thrust forward. "Mr. Johnson, how do you feel about the verdict?" Marcus stopped. He looked at the cameras. "Today justice was served. My mother was abused by people she trusted. She was beaten, drugged, threatened. She almost lost everything. But she fought back. She found her voice, and because of her courage, 3 predators are going to prison where they belong." He put his arm around Mama Joe. "I want every person watching this to know that elder abuse is real. It happens in homes across America every day. If you suspect someone you love is being hurt, say something, do something, because your voice might be the only thing that saves their life." He turned and helped his mother toward the car. Mama Joe looked up at him with tears streaming down her face. "We did it, baby. We really did it." Marcus held her tight. "No, Mama. You did it. You were the brave one." They drove home as a family. Marcus, Mama Joe, Miss Ruthie. The 3 of them had been through hell together. And they had come out the other side. The sun was setting over Atlanta. The sky was painted in shades of orange and gold. For the first time in what felt like forever, the world felt right again. 2 weeks passed like a held breath. Marcus spent every day preparing for the sentencing hearing, coordinating with Diana Wells, and making sure his mother and Miss Ruthie were protected. The conviction had been a victory, but the fight was not over yet. The morning of the sentencing, Marcus woke before dawn. He found Mama Joe already awake, sitting in her chair by the window, her Bible open in her lap. "Couldn't sleep either?" he asked. She shook her head. "Too much on my mind. Today is the day it truly ends." Marcus sat down beside her. "Are you ready?" Mama Joe closed her Bible and looked at him. "I've been ready for 2 years. I've been waiting for this moment since the first time Derek raised his hand to me. I just never thought it would actually come." "It came, Mama, because you were brave enough to speak." She reached out and touched his face. "It came because you came home. If you hadn't walked through that door when you did, I would be dead by now. I believe that with all my heart." Marcus took her hand. "God brought me home. I don't know how else to explain it. Something told me to come back early. Something told me you needed me. That was your Father's spirit. He's watching over us. He always has been." They sat together in silence as the sun began to rise. Miss Ruthie arrived at 7 o'clock. She was dressed in a navy blue dress with a white collar. Her hair was neatly styled. Her eyes were clear. "Big day," she said. "The biggest." Mama Joe stood and embraced her. "Thank you for being here, Ruth, for everything." "There's nowhere else I'd rather be, Mrs. Joe. We started this together. We're going to finish it together." They drove to the courthouse as a family. Raymond Blake met them at the entrance. Diana Wells was already inside preparing her victim impact statement. The courtroom was packed, even more crowded than the trial. Word had spread about the case. Elder abuse advocates, civil rights organizations, Journalists from across the country. Everyone wanted to witness the conclusion. Derek, Veronica, and Patricia Coleman were led in. They looked different than they had during the trial. Defeated. Broken. The arrogance was gone from Derek's eyes. Veronica's face was pale and drawn. Patricia Coleman stared at the floor. Judge Coleman entered. Everyone rose. "Be seated." She surveyed the courtroom, her expression grave. "We are here today for the sentencing of Derek Hayes, Veronica Hayes, and Patricia Coleman, who were found guilty of elder abuse assault, financial exploitation, kidnapping, and conspiracy to commit murder. Before I impose sentence, I will hear victim impact statements." Diana Wells stood. "Your Honor." The prosecution calls Josephine Johnson. Mama Jo rose. Miss Ruthie squeezed her hand. Marcus helped her to her feet. She walked to the podium at the front of the courtroom. Her steps were slow but steady. Her back was straight. Her chin was high. She looked at the judge, then at the jury, then at the defendants. "Your Honor, 2 years ago, I opened my home to people I believed were family. I welcomed them with love, with trust, with hope. I thought I was giving my son a brother. I thought I was making our family whole." Her voice trembled but did not break. "Instead, I invited monsters into my house. They beat me. They drugged me. They stole from me. They told me I was worthless. They told me my son didn't love me. They told me that when I died, nobody would care." Tears began to slip down her cheeks. "For 2 years I lived in fear. Every day I woke up wondering if today would be the day they killed me. Every night I went to sleep praying that someone would come and save me." She turned and looked at Marcus. "And then my son came home. He saw the truth. He believed me. He fought for me when I was too weak to fight for myself." She turned back to the judge. "I am 78 years old. I have survived more than most people could imagine. I survived Jim Crow. I survived poverty. I survived losing my husband. But nothing I have ever experienced hurt as much as being betrayed by people I called family." Her voice strengthened. "Your Honor, I am not asking for vengeance. I am asking for justice. I am asking you to send a message to everyone who thinks they can abuse an elderly person and get away with it. I am asking you to tell the world that our lives matter, that our pain matters, that we deserve to live our final years in peace and dignity." She stood taller. "Derek Hayes took my trust and turned it into a weapon. Veronica Hayes took my kindness and used it to destroy me. Patricia Coleman orchestrated the whole thing from the shadows. They are not victims. They are predators. And they need to be locked away where they can never hurt anyone again." She paused. "That is all I have to say." The courtroom was silent. Several jurors were crying. Even the bailiffs looked moved. Mama Jo walked back to her seat. Marcus embraced her. "You were incredible, Mama. I just told the truth, one last time." Diana Wells stood again. "Your Honor, the prosecution also has a statement from Miss Ruth Williams." Miss Ruthie rose. Her hands were shaking, but her voice was steady as she walked to the podium. "Your Honor, I worked for the Johnson family for 8 years, Mrs. Jo was like a mother to me. She treated me with kindness and respect when so many others treated me like I was invisible." She looked at the defendants. "When I saw what they were doing to her, I wanted to stop it. I wanted to call for help, but they threatened me. They said they would have me deported. They said they would destroy my grandson's future. So I stayed silent, and that silence haunts me every day." Her voice cracked. "When they kidnapped me, I thought I was going to die. They kept me in a dark room for hours. They told me they were going to kill me and dump my body where no one would ever find it. I have never been so scared in my life." She wiped her eyes. "But I survived. Because Mr. Marcus never gave up. Because the police never stopped looking. Because God was watching over me." She turned to the judge. "Your Honor, these people are dangerous. They hurt Mrs. Jo for years. They kidnapped me. They were planning to murder us both. Please do not show them mercy. They showed none to us." She stepped down and returned to her seat. Mama Jo wrapped an arm around her. Judge Coleman turned to the defense. Does the defense wish to make a statement before sentencing? Alan Pierce stood reluctantly. Your Honor, my clients wish to address the court. The judge nodded. Very well. Mr. Hayes, you may speak first. Derek stood. His prison jumpsuit hung loosely on his frame. He had lost weight during the trial. His eyes were hollow. Your Honor, I want to say that I'm sorry. I'm sorry for what I did. I was angry. I felt like I had been cheated my whole life. I took that anger out on people who didn't deserve it. He glanced at Marcus. I know my brother will never forgive me. I don't expect him to. I don't deserve forgiveness. But I want him to know that I'm sorry. I'm sorry I wasn't the brother he wanted me to be. Marcus's face remained stone. Derek continued. I'm not asking for leniency. I know what I did was wrong. I'm just asking for a chance to become a better person, to prove that I can change. He sat down. Veronica stood next. Her voice was high and strained. Your Honor, I was following my husband's lead. I didn't want to hurt anyone. I was just trying to support my family. I know that's not an excuse, but it's the truth. Derek was the one who made the decisions. I just went along with them. Mama Jo shook her head slowly. I'm sorry for any pain I caused. I'm asking for mercy, please. She sat down. Patricia Coleman stood last. Her face was blank, empty. Your Honor, I have nothing to say. She sat down. Judge Coleman looked at the three defendants for a long moment. I have presided over many cases in my career. I have seen crimes of passion, crimes of desperation, crimes committed in moments of weakness. But I have rarely seen a crime as calculated, as cruel, and as cowardly as what you three have done. Her voice hardened. You targeted a vulnerable elderly woman. You systematically destroyed her trust, her health, and her sense of safety. You stole from her. You beat her. You drugged her. You isolated her from the one person who could have saved her. And when your scheme was exposed, you kidnapped an innocent woman and planned to commit murder. She shook her head. Mr. Hayes, you speak of anger, of feeling cheated. But the only person who cheated was you. You cheated Mrs. Johnson out of her peace. You cheated your brother out of a family. You cheated yourself out of any chance at redemption. She turned to Veronica. Mrs. Hayes, you claim you were just following your husband. But the evidence shows you were an active participant. You administered the drugs. You made the threats. You orchestrated the isolation. You are not a victim. You are a co-conspirator. She turned to Patricia Coleman. And you, Mrs. Coleman, you sat in the shadows and pulled the strings. You taught your daughter how to steal, how to manipulate, how to destroy. You are the architect of this horror, and you will pay for it. She straightened the papers in front of her. Derek Hayes, I sentence you to 25 years in state prison. Veronica Hayes, I sentence you to 20 years in state prison. Patricia Coleman, I sentence you to 15 years in state prison. The courtroom erupted. Derek dropped his head. Veronica let out a wail. Patricia Coleman closed her eyes. Judge Coleman struck her gavel. Order, I am not finished. The room quieted. Additionally, all defendants are ordered to pay full restitution to Josephine Johnson in the amount of $473,000. They are banned from any contact with Mrs. Johnson, Marcus Johnson, or Ruth Williams for the rest of their lives. Any violation of this order will result in additional prison time. She looked at the defendants one final time. You will have plenty of time to reflect on what you have done. I hope you use that time wisely. Court is adjourned. She struck her gavel. It was over. Outside the courthouse, the sun was shining. Marcus stood on the steps with Mama Jo on one side and Miss Ruthie on the other. Reporters surrounded them, but for once Marcus did not mind. Mr. Johnson, how do you feel about the sentences? Marcus looked at the cameras. Justice was served today. My mother can finally live the rest of her life in peace. That is all that matters. Do you have any message for Derek Hayes? Marcus paused. He thought about his half-brother, about the family he had hoped they could become, about the dreams that had been destroyed by greed and jealousy. I have nothing to say to Derek Hayes. He is not my brother. He never was. He turned and helped his mother toward the car. As they drove home, Mama Joe reached over and took Marcus's hand. It's really over, isn't it? Yes, Mama, it's really over. She leaned her head against his shoulder. I never thought I would see this day. All those nights when I was alone and scared, I prayed for deliverance. And God sent you. Marcus squeezed her hand. God brought me home. The rest was you, Mama. Your strength, your courage, your truth. Miss Ruthie spoke from the back seat. What happens now? Marcus smiled. Now we live. We heal. We move forward. Together. They arrived at the estate. Marcus helped Mama Joe out of the car. She stood in the driveway looking at the house that had once been her prison. This place felt so dark for so long, but now it feels different. It feels like home again. Marcus put his arm around her. It is home, Mama. It always has been. We just had to fight to get it back. That evening, they gathered in the living room. Marcus, Mama Joe, Miss Ruthie Raymond Blake, Diana Wells, the people who had fought together, the family they had become. Raymond raised his glass. To justice. Diana raised hers. To courage. Miss Ruthie raised hers. To family. Mama Joe raised hers. To my son, who came home when I needed him most. Marcus raised his glass last. To you, Mama, the strongest woman I have ever known. This victory belongs to you. They drank together. Later that night, after everyone had gone home, Marcus sat with his mother on the back porch. The stars were bright overhead. Do you ever think about Daddy? Mama Joe asked. Marcus nodded. All the time, especially lately. I think he would be proud of you, of what you did, of who you've become. I hope so. Mama Joe was quiet for a moment. You know I forgave your father a long time ago. For his mistakes, for Derek, for everything. Holding on to anger only poisons the person who carries it. Can you forgive Derek? Mama Joe sighed. Forgiveness is between him and God now. What I can do is let go of the hate. I refuse to carry that burden anymore. I've carried enough burdens in my life. Marcus looked at his mother, at the lines on her face that told the story of a life full of struggle and triumph, at the eyes that still held so much love despite everything she had endured. You're an amazing woman, Mama. She smiled. I had to be. I was raising you. They laughed together. It was the first real laugh they had shared in years. 6 months later, Marcus stood in the backyard of the estate, watching his mother tend to her garden. She had planted tomatoes, collard greens, sunflowers. A wooden sign hung on the fence that read, Mama Joe's Garden. Miss Ruthie was there too, helping water the plants. The two women laughed and talked as they worked, their hands covered in dirt, their faces lit by the afternoon sun. Marcus thought about everything they had been through. The abuse, the fear, the trial, the victory. It had been the hardest year of his life, but it had also been the most important. He had learned what really mattered, not money, not success, not buildings or companies or deals. What mattered was family, love, truth, justice. He had almost lost his mother. He had almost lost everything, but he had fought back. They had all fought back, and they had won. His phone buzzed. A text from Raymond. The restitution check cleared. Every penny has been returned to your mother's accounts. Marcus smiled and put the phone away. Mama Joe looked up from her gardening. What are you smiling about? Nothing, Mama, just happy. She stood up, wiping her hands on her apron. Come help me with these tomatoes. They're not going to pick themselves. Marcus walked over and knelt beside his mother in the garden. Miss Ruthie handed him a basket. You know, Mama Joe said, your grandmother used to have a garden just like this. She said there was nothing more healing than putting your hands in the dirt and watching something grow. She was a wise woman. She was. She taught me everything I know. Mama Joe paused. And I taught you. And one day you'll teach your children. That's how it works. That's how we survive. Marcus picked a ripe tomato and placed it in the basket. I used to think success meant building something big, something the world would remember. But now I understand. Real success is this. Right here, family, love, peace. Mama Joe put her hand on his shoulder. You finally understand, baby. It took you 45 years, but you finally understand. They laughed together. Miss Ruthie joined them, and the three of them worked side by side in the garden until the sun began to set. That night, they had dinner together. Tomatoes from the garden. Cornbread that Miss Ruthie made. Sweet tea that Mama Joe brewed the way she had been brewing it for 60 years. They talked about the past, about the future, about everything in between. Mama Joe told stories about Marcus as a child, about the trouble he used to get into, about the dreams he used to have. Miss Ruthie told stories about her grandmother, about growing up in rural Georgia, about the faith that had carried her through the hardest times. Marcus listened. He laughed. He cried. He was home. Later that night, after Miss Ruthie had gone to bed, Marcus sat with his mother in the living room. Mama, I want to ask you something. What is it, baby? Are you happy? Mama Joe thought for a moment. I spent 2 years being afraid. 2 years wondering if I would ever feel safe again. 2 years believing the lies they told me about myself. She looked at Marcus. But now I wake up every morning and I feel the sun on my face. I work in my garden. I eat dinner with people I love. I go to sleep knowing that I am protected, that I am valued, that I matter. She smiled. Yes, baby, I am happy. For the first time in a long time, I am truly happy. Marcus felt tears welling in his eyes. That's all I ever wanted, Mama, your happiness, your peace. And you gave it to me. You gave me my life back. She reached out and took his hand. I am proud of you, Marcus. Proud of the man you've become. Proud of the son you've always been. Your father would be proud too, I know it. Marcus squeezed her hand. I love you, Mama. I love you too, baby. More than you will ever know. They sat together in the quiet of the evening, mother and son, their hands intertwined. The battles were over. The wounds were healing. The future was bright. And in that moment, Marcus understood something he had been searching for his entire life. Home was not a place. It was not a building or an address or a piece of property. Home was the people who loved you, the people who stood by you, the people who fought for you when you could not fight for yourself. Home was Mama Joe's garden and Miss Ruthie's cornbread and the sound of laughter echoing through the halls. Home was truth. Home was justice. Home was love. And Marcus was finally home. He looked at his mother peaceful in her chair, her Bible resting in her lap. He thought about everything they had overcome, everything they had survived. And he made one final promise. He would protect this home, this family, this love, for the rest of his days. Because that is what family does. That is what love demands. And that is what Mama Joe had taught him from the very beginning. The strongest foundation is built not on money or power or success. It is built on love. And love always wins.